Was Gorbachev's engagement with Western leaders truly surprising? Imagine a leader who had spent decades building a fortress of strict ideology suddenly reaching out across borders. That was Gorbachev in the Cold War era. When he came to power in 1985, the Soviet Union was facing serious problems. The economy was stuck, political life was rigid, and people in Eastern Europe were starting to protest. Gorbachev knew change was needed. He introduced reforms called Perestroika, which meant restructuring the economy, and Glasnost, which meant openness. These changes weren't just about fixing internal issues. They also affected how the Soviet Union interacted with the world. Gorbachev's approach to Western leaders was different from what came before. Instead of confrontation, he wanted dialogue. He aimed to reduce military tensions, cut defense costs, and open the door for trade and technology exchange. This was a big shift from the aggressive stance of earlier Soviet leaders. He even announced that the Soviet Union would reduce its armed forces unilaterally and invited NATO to focus on defense rather than offense. These steps showed he was serious about peaceful coexistence. His willingness to negotiate arms control agreements with the United States was another sign of this new thinking. He tolerated political changes in Eastern Europe, which led to the fall of communist regimes. These moves surprised many Western countries, who had expected more hostility from the Soviets. But for Gorbachev, it was all part of a plan to reform the system from within and avoid conflict. From the Soviet perspective, engaging with the West was a strategic move to save socialism and the Soviet Union itself. It was about adapting to a changing world, not abandoning their ideology. Gorbachev wanted to prevent violent crackdowns on reform movements in Eastern Europe and sought peaceful relations with the West. However, this openness also created internal criticism. Hardliners in the Soviet Union saw his actions as weakening the communist bloc. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the eventual dissolution of the Soviet Union were outcomes that Gorbachev did not fully want. They happened because of the policies he put into motion, which unleashed forces difficult to control. So, was his engagement with Western leaders surprising? Not entirely. It was a calculated move driven by the need for reform and stability. It marked a shift in Soviet strategy from confrontation to diplomacy. While many in the West found it unexpected, it fit within the broader context of Perestroika and the global pressures of the Cold War. Gorbachev's actions showed a leader willing to change course to keep his country afloat in a rapidly changing world.